Join our community by subscribing. Every click helps us share more stories like this one.
The introduction. In the quiet, unassuming town of Maplewood, the early morning sun cast long shadows across the winding streets. Lush greenery hugged the homes like a protective blanket, hiding the secrets that lay beneath the surface. On the periphery of this idyllic setting stood a modest single-family home, bearing no additional signs of the tragedy that unfolded within its walls. On an otherwise ordinary Tuesday morning, a 911 call pierced through the tranquil facade. The operator listened intently as a voice trembled on the other end, breaking the stillness like a sudden crash of thunder. "You need to come quickly. It's bad." The caller's words were frantic, filled with fear that spiraled into chaos. As emergency responders arrived, they were met not only with the urgency of the moment, but with an unsettling sight. A man lay motionless on the floor, blood pooling around him, a dark stain spreading across the innocuous beige carpet. This was Daniel Jenkins, a well-respected local teacher, known for his kindness and dedication to his students. His presence in the community was welcomed. His absence now felt like a thunderbolt splitting the sky. Detectives from the Maplewood Police Department cordoned off the area, caution tape fluttering in the gentle breeze as they began their grim task. Each piece of evidence collected became a potential key that could unlock the mystery of how Daniel's life came to such a brutal end. The quiet town now held its breath, grappling with the shock that one of its own had been so violently taken from them. The community braced itself, sensing that the search for truth would unfold like a dark shadow over the sunny streets of their small town. No one could fathom that the days ahead would unravel a tapestry of intertwined lives, hidden motives, and long-buried secrets. As dawn turned into day, one question hung heavy in the air. Who would want to kill Daniel Jenkins, and why? The victim. Daniel Jenkins was not just a name in Maplewood. He was an institution. At 38 years old, he had devoted over a decade to teaching 8th grade English at Maplewood Middle School. His passion for literature was infectious, igniting a similar spark in the hundreds of adolescents who passed through his classroom each year. Students admired him not only for his knowledge, but also for his compassion and understanding, often turning to him for guidance during turbulent teenage years. As investigators delved deeper into Daniel's life, they unearthed an exceptionally rich history. He was born and raised in a neighboring town, the only child of a single mother who worked 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Daniel's early life was marked by struggle, forging in him an indomitable will and a desire to uplift others. His mother, overwhelmed yet proud, instilled values of hard work and empathy that shaped Daniel into the man he had become. Friends remembered his infectious laughter, his ability to make others feel at ease, and his undying enthusiasm for the arts. Away from the classroom, Daniel was an avid reader, a loyal friend, and a passionate advocate for youth, spending his weekends volunteering at the local community center, mentoring younger children who faced challenges similar to those he once experienced. But the serene facade began to fracture under the investigation's scrutiny. As detectives canvassed the neighborhood, they encountered whispers of tensions and unexplained rifts in Daniel's life. Sudden estrangement from his childhood friend after an unsolved dispute, and an unsettling encounter at a recent school board meeting where he had fiercely defended an unpopular program. Throughout the tight-knit community, sentiments exchanged soft memories for darker possibilities. What had once been the portrait of a beloved teacher now came rudely into focus, revealing a man whose life was not as simple as it appeared. The deeper detectives probed, the more they realized that Daniel's seemingly perfect life might be hiding shadow-hidden tensions and unresolved conflicts that cast a pall over his undeniable legacy. The investigation had just begun, and the layers of this murder would reveal more than a singular truth. They would unearth the complex interplay of relationships and motives lurking behind a painted smile. The crime scene. Once the initial shock faded, investigators turned their attention back to the grim interior of Daniel Jenkins' home. Every inch of the crime scene was meticulously examined. Forensic technicians donned gloves and masks, treating the scene with an almost reverent precision, as if piecing together a tragic puzzle from remnants of a life lived. The living room, where Daniel's body had been discovered, was now a tense tableau of disarray. The coffee table lay skewed, overturned as if a struggle had unfolded. An overturned mug lay broken on the carpet beside a notebook filled with hardly legible notes. Nearby, a solitary shoe sat awkwardly by the doorway, unused and untouched. It raised questions about who else might have been present at the moment the violence erupted. Detective Lisa Reynolds knelt beside the body, observing the darkening pool of blood that had begun to congeal. Daniel's previous demeanor, his laughter, echoing through school corridors, felt light years away. He had been struck multiple times, the nature of the wound suggesting a fury that was both personal and furious. With this violence came the piercing realization that whoever had done this had known him well enough to strike where it hurt the most. The walls were decorated with photographs capturing joyous moments, Daniel with his students, smiling at school events, and candid family shots from happier times spent outdoor. But it was the final photograph and image of an estranged friend that caught Reynolds' eye, one she had seen before. In the background of community events, a figure whose very presence seemed out of place in this collection of heartfelt memories. She made a mental note to follow that lead, as evidence bags filled with fragments of Daniel's life, each personal belonging, turned into plus the atmosphere thickened with tension and urgency. In the hallway, they discovered the remnants of a forced entry. Fresh scrapes on the doorframe, the lock slightly bent. Had Daniel been taken by surprise? If so, how involved was this stranger in the intimacy of his life? Days turned into nights as the team pondered these complexities, and with every new discovery, the image of Daniel transformed, shifted, revealing a darker tapestry woven with relationships laced in tension. The clues began to mount, and with them, the chilling realization that every answer was leading them deeper into a web of deceit, where no one was above suspicion, and the truth felt disappointingly elusive. As the investigation pressed forward, so did the haunting question: who had taken Daniel's life? Could they still be close enough to strike again? The early investigation The sun dipped low over Maplewood, casting elongated shadows across the streets as the investigation gathered momentum. Detective Lisa Reynolds and her partner, Detective Tom Harrington, pored over their notes, illuminated by the harsh glow of a desk lamp in the small police station. Tension filled the air, buoyed by the sense of urgency surrounding Daniel Jenkins' murder. With their first wave of interviews underway, they began questioning those closest to Daniel, hoping to peel back the layers of his life. Early on, they approached his co-workers at Maplewood Middle School, Most spoke highly of him, but there were murmurs of jealousy. He had recently applied for a coveted promotion, competing against colleagues who had more experience. One teacher, Mary Scott, admitted some people were too happy about it. It could make them desperate. This kernel of information sparked intrigue. Was it possible that ambition mixed with resentment could lead to lethal outcomes? Friction boiled beneath the surface, and by the end of the day, the detectives had more questions than answers. Next, they turned their attention to Daniel's friends, including Alex Chen, the estranged childhood companion from whom Daniel had distanced himself in recent years. Meeting at the local coffee shop, Alex's eyes darted nervously as he recounted their last interaction. "We had a falling out. Wanted to talk things through, but he just dismissed me." His frustration morphed into anger. "I can't believe someone would hurt him like this." As each interview unfolded, the narrative around Daniel deepened. He was a man softly entangled in the complexities of human relationships, a beloved figure whose life shifted through a landscape peppered with unease and past grievances. His friends spoke of kindness but also of anxiety. The community's pressures, the volatile dynamics within the school, and the shadows of Daniel's personal battle. Investigators left no stone unturned, each newfound detail building a more intricate image of a life filled with connections that could turn sour. The detectives' instincts whispered of hidden resentments, fears, and perhaps a dangerous obsession lurking within seemingly benign relationship. Every face in the town of Maplewood now carried the weight of potential suspicion. And as the investigation unfurled, Reynolds and Harrington felt the encroaching darkness envelop them, aware that the answers lay buried within the complex tapestry of Daniel Jenkins' existence. With the night creeping closer, the detectives prepared for what lay ahead, steeling themselves for a myriad of possibilities, both predictable and unforeseeable. They would soon discover that the truth of Daniel's murder was intimately woven into the fabric of those who had known him best. The dead ends. As the investigation into Daniel Jenkins' murder pressed on, the days bled into a frustrating string of dead ends. Detectives Reynolds and Harrington sat in the dimly lit conference room, papers strewn about like discarded hopes. Each lead came piecemeal, a tip that led nowhere. The witness whose memory faltered. The sense of urgency that once fueled them began to morph into a suffocating weight, and clarity felt increasingly distant. An exhaustive review of Daniel's phone records revealed little. His last messages were mundane, filled with, "Are we still on for this Friday? Can you cover my class tomorrow? I have a family commitment." These unremarkable exchanges painted a picture of a man engaged in ordinary daily life, free from the tumult that would soon culminate in his murder. The detectives ran the names through a database, hoping something might link back to the college friends he had grown distant from over the years. Yet, each search yielded silence, blank slates, and unanswered questions. Their frustrations mounted as they pursued an interesting line on a barista who had served Daniel coffee the week of his death. She claimed he had seemed anxious, often scanning the room, a behavior indicative of brewing trouble. The detectives' hopes soared momentarily, only to quash when her ambiguous statements proved fruitless. Daniel had merely mentioned needing to lay low because of stuff in his life. The detectives traced back to Maplewood Middle School, digging deeper into Daniel's professional world, suspecting jealousy or competition might be fueling the anger surrounding him as he vied for the promotion. The principal, however, painted a portrait of solidarity among the staff, dismissively brushing aside claims of rivalry. Daniel uplifted those around him. No one would harm him. It doesn't fit. The absence of a clear suspect frustrated Reynolds and Harrington, yet it solidified their resolve. The emotional strain of the case seeped into their personal lives. Reynolds found herself staring at the same empty walls of her apartment, wishing she could break through the fog of indecision that loomed over the investigation. But each failed lead, she questioned her instincts, but then a thought latched onto her like a lifeline. Perhaps the key to unraveling Daniel's fate lay not in an external threat, but within the fractured threads of his own relationships. As weeks passed, it became glaringly evident that the quaint town of Maplewood held secrets that refused to surface. The truth lingered beneath familiar smiles, just out of reach, tantalizingly close, yet chillingly elusive. In this quiet corner of the world, where everyone thought they knew each other, Reynolds and Harrington braced for the deeper, darker connections that would undoubtedly surface as they pressed forward into uncharted territory. A break in the case, with another week sliding into memory. A palpable sense of tension filled the air in the Maplewood police station. A relentless pursuit of answers had worn the team thin, and yet resilience simmered beneath the surface. Just as hope began to ebb, the phone rang, shattering the silence of the department. Detective Reynolds answered, her heart racing slightly, as she felt the instinct that it could be worth her while. A caller, an elderly woman named Margaret, reported having seen someone unfamiliar lingering near Daniel's neighborhood. Her voice trembled with age, but her recollection was sharp. I often sit on my porch and watch the world go by, dear. I noticed a man he thought he seemed out of place, like he didn't belong. The details unfolded tantalizingly slowly. Margaret described a tall, dark-haired individual with an unkempt appearance. He wore a hooded sweatshirt and was constantly fidgeting, pacing back and forth in front of Daniel's house. He looked nervous, not like a visitor, she asserted. Sensing the weight of her words, Reynolds quickly arranged to meet with Margaret in person. When they arrived at her home, the detective's interest peaked as Margaret pointed toward the street, recounting the eerie night in vivid detail. He was there for at least an hour, shuffling, as if waiting for someone. Her eyes glazed, holding back tears. I wondered if he was a friend or a foe. I didn't know what to think. As they pressed her, they learned that the man had eventually left, disappearing into the night with a singular purpose. The detectives recognized a significant breakthrough. Through the fog of endless frustration, as Margaret mentioned, she had seen him a few times prior, hanging around the schoolyard, a potential link that could unravel threads of Daniel's life. This newfound information set off a rush of adrenaline in Reynolds. They quickly sought neighborhood surveillance footage surrounding the block to capture the man's movements. With a fresh sense of purpose, they pieced the fragments together, unleashing a willingness to pursue the unexplored angles of the case. Days later, as technicians meticulously combed through the footage, an image materialized, uncanny and clear. It was the hooded figure Margaret described, lurking outside Daniel's home just hours before the tragedy struck. For the first time, a name surfaced to match the face. A former student of Daniel's, Someone who had struggled academically and personally, leaving resentment simmering beneath their surface. A rush of urgency surged through Reynolds. This connection felt like an inviting door rather than yet another wall. The visual link between the past and present showed promise, igniting hope where there had been darkness. The narrative was taking shape, now poised on the brink of revelation. As Reynolds and Harrington geared up to bring the suspect in for questioning, the heart of the investigation pulsed anew. Could this be the break he had desperately sought? The detectives shared a knowing glance, fueled by the relentless pursuit of justice, aware that they were heading into a storm where both questions and answers awaited them. The suspect. The atmosphere was thick with tension as Reynolds and Harrington prepared to confront the suspect. Every instinct told them that they were closing in on the truth about Daniel Jenkins' death. The name they had unearthed belonged to Adam Spence, a former student who had left a jarring impression on everyone at Maplewood Middle School. Once an eager learner, Adam's trajectory had shifted dramatically during his teenage years, spiraling into academic decline marked by reckless behavior and increasing hostile. The detectives arranged to bring Adam in for questioning at the station, knowing it was crucial to approach him carefully. Tension settled in as they waited, their thoughts racing through potential scenarios. Would he crumble under pressure, or would he keep his secrets close to his chest? At last, Adam entered the room. A young man now, who bore the weight of the years like a heavy cloak. He shuffled in, eyes downcast, his unkempt appearance betraying little of the confidence they had hoped to see. Reynolds observed him closely, taking note of the way he fidgeted. Fingers twisted together, the twitch of his jaw, betraying a nervous energy that leaped to life as soon as he realized why he was there. "Adam, thank you for coming in," Reynolds began, her voice smooth, inviting. "We have some questions to ask you about Mr. Jenkins." The tension escalated as he shifted uncomfortably, a hint of fear dawning on his face. "I don't really know anything," he mumbled, though the stammer in his voice betrayed his attempts to appear calm. Reynolds pressed on, laying out the timeline leading up to Daniel's murder, and subtly threading in the details pieced together from eyewitness accounts and surveillance footage. "Witnesses saw you near Daniel's house the night he was killed. Can you explain why you were there?" His eyes darted nervously across the room, avoiding contact. "I wasn't there to hurt him. I needed to talk." His outburst startled them both, and the detectives leaned in, keenly capturing the flicker of emotion, fear, desperation, perhaps even an unbidden anger. "How then, you..." Harrington asked, redirecting the conversation, keen on uncovering the motive beneath the surface. Adam's voice lowered, cracking as he struggled to calibrate between his memories of Daniel's kindness and the bitterness that festered inside him. "He didn't care about me anymore. Everyone else just moved on. But I felt like I was falling apart, and he just ignored me." The tension shifted as the detectives exchanged glances, registering the complexity of his emotional landscape. Adam's feelings of abandonment had transformed into resentment, and it painted a clearer picture of the interpersonal dynamics at play. Somewhere amid the fog, the vital thread of evidence began to form a potential motive cloaked in the guise of betrayal. "Listen," Reynolds replied, softening her tone. "We understand that you were upset. But we need the truth, Adam. Can you tell us what happened that night?" She held his gaze, willing him to relinquish the emotions that had long encapsulated him. For a brief moment, silence wrapped around them. But in that stillness, the realization took root, confronting uncomfortable truths. Could unearth not only Daniel's past, but also Adam's own demons that had haunted him for far too long. The detectives hoped this was just the beginning, a crack in the armor that would lead to a more profound understanding of Daniel's untimely demise. It was a step toward unraveling a tragedy that resonated deeper than they had initially fathomed. The trial. The tension in the courtroom was palpable as the trial of Adam Spence commenced. There, under the heavy gaze of the community that had once hailed Daniel Jenkins as a cherished educator, the atmosphere was thick with anticipation and grief. The walls resonated with the echoes of whispered sympathies mingling with murmurs of disbelief. How could a community's heart, so vibrant and alive, suffer such a tragedy? Reynolds sat in the front row, her heart pounding, as the prosecution laid out the case against Adam. The evidence was compelling. Surveillance footage capturing him pacing outside Daniel's home. Eyewitness accounts describing his erratic behavior on the night of the murder, and his own admission of feelings of betrayal and neglect had painted a portrait of a young man teetering on the brink of catalyst for the violence that had shattered their town. The prosecutor maintained a steady, unwavering presence, meticulously detailing the events leading up to that fateful night. Adam Spence was once a promising student, a bright star dimmed by feelings of abandonment and jealousy, she stated. But these emotions do not excuse his actions. He took a life dedicated to nurturing and uplifting others. The defense countered with a stark, contrasting narrative. They painted Adam as a misguided youth, a victim of circumstances exacerbated by mental health struggles. Yes, he felt cast aside. But that did not mean he intended to harm Daniel Jenkins. This is not a story of malice, but of tragedy. A young man caught in a moment of emotional turmoil, the defense attorney argued, trying to appeal to the jury's sense of compassion. As each witness took the stand, the courtroom became an emotional battleground. Daniel's friends and colleagues recounted stories of his kindness, juxtaposed with Adam's descent into despair, a spiral where respect had eroded into resentment. Each testimony was a stark reminder that beneath the surface of this crime rested two lives forever altered. Daniel's life extinguished, and Adam's ripped apart by regret. Reynolds found herself grappling with the raw anguish that permeated the room. He watched as the feelings of grief and anger spilled from the witness stand, brimming with the urgency of unresolved conflict. Deep down, she recognized that the trial transcended the need for justice. It was also an unyielding struggle for healing in a town grappling with its own aching wound. As the trial progressed, the jury was faced with a moral dilemma. Under what circumstances do emotions ignite into a storm of violence? And to what extent does that justification lie? The deliberation stretched on, days filled with tension, with glances exchanged between weary jurors, burdened by the weight of their decision. Finally, after long deliberation, the jury emerged. The foreperson's voice rang out, delivering the verdict that would echo throughout Maplewood. A mix of relief and sorrow painted across the faces of the gathered community. forever united in the echoes of loss. Adam was found guilty of manslaughter, a verdict that promised a stiff prison sentence, without the typical repercussions of murder. Big gasps. A collective breath held for too long, finally released. While justice had been served, it carried an intricate pain, a reminder that healing would be a long road ahead for everyone touched by this tragedy. As the trial came to a close, Reynolds stood outside the courthouse, watching families, neighbors, and friends disperse, each carrying the weight of Daniel's legacy. An emotional testimony to a life cut short. The pain of loss, woven into the fabric of this town, would forever remain. A somber reminder that grief and forgiveness often danced an intricate ballet, drifting in tandem through the corridors of human experience. The aftermath. Weeks melted into months following the trial, and life in Maplewood gradually resumed a semblance of normalcy. Yet the specter of Daniel Jenkins loomed large. Memorials continued to be held, gatherings in his honor peppering the calendar, where the community paid homage to a beloved teacher taken far too soon. The sharp pang of loss was ever present, morphing from a raw wound into a constant ache, woven into the everyday lives of those who had known and loved him. Detective Lisa Reynolds found herself a regular at the local coffee shop, its corner booth now a refuge, where she could occasionally escape the memories that clamored in her mind. Consistently, she would see former students from Maplewood Middle School gather, their laughter intertwining with stories of Daniel's quirks and kindness, familiar tales that felt both heartening and haunting. She listened closely, grateful for the way the community cherished his memory. Each story a fragile piece of a larger mosaic, imbued with love. But not everyone walked the same path of healing. Adam Spence was sentenced to 8 years in prison, the verdict echoing the divide among townsfolk. Some expressed anger and disbelief, claiming his punishment was too lenient for a life lost. Others arguing it offered Adam a chance for redemption. With each debate rekindled, fractures marred friendships, echoing through conversations like rolling thunder. On one particularly quiet evening, Reynolds received an unexpected call from Adam's defense attorney, requesting a meeting. He wants to talk privately, the lawyer explained. Moments later, Reynolds found herself standing across from Adam in a sparsely furnished meeting room within the prison walls, a scene devoid of the chaotic energy that had once permeated their interaction. Adam sat there, sunken but composed, a shadow of the young man she had questioned during the investigation. "I wanted to say I'm sorry," he said simply. His voice was quiet, his emotions rummaging through layers of remorse. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to say it. I see now he was wrong." The enormity of his words hung thick between them, igniting a spark of something bittersweet within Reynolds. "You made choices that night," she said gently, striving to keep her tone neutral, "and now you have to live with them." "I know," he replied, his eyes reflecting a turbulence of regret and sorrow. "But I also know I lost a mentor. Someone who believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted a chance to be heard." A moment of silence draped around them, thick with the weight of their shared reality. Reynolds realized that Adam, despite his actions, carried the burden of his own grief. He had squandered the chance at redemption, not just for himself but for Daniel's memory. As the weeks unfurled into months, the community began organizing a scholarship in Daniel's name, directed toward at-risk youths. This effort resonated deeply with Reynolds, as each contribution echoed the love and compassion Daniel had embodied. She attended meetings, facilitated discussions, and watched as Maplewood came together, uniting in pursuit of hope amidst the scars. Whatever rifts had formed in the community began to mend slowly. Conversations shifted from bitterness to healing. Daniel had inspired many in life, and now his legacy was morphing into a beacon of resilience. And while the pain of loss remained an intricate part of the fabric of Maplewood, there was also a blossoming resolve to honor his memory by fostering kindness, empathy, and understanding in a world often marred by misunderstandings and hurt. As Reynolds stepped outside after the meeting, she felt the first hint of spring on his skin. Soft warmth, a whisper of new beginnings yet to come. This journey taught her that though loss is heavy, the threads of love and hope woven through the darkest troubles could illuminate the path forward, prompting her to grasp the possibilities that lay ahead. For herself, and for her cherished small community. Reflection. Nightfall cast a gentle shroud over Maplewood, the evening air filled with the scents of fresh blossoms and renewed life. As Reynolds reflected on the past many months, she felt like an observer in an unfolding tapestry of human experience, evident and complex, entwined with threads of both joy and sorrow. Daniel's legacy, captured in the faces of children laughing and learning, reminded her of the profound impact one life can have on many. Sitting on her porch, Reynolds had not only invested herself in the pursuit of justice, but had also unearthed her own journey of resilience. Throughout the investigation, it was a recognition that healing is often non-linear, marked by moments of grace and introspection. She thought of Adam, once a troubled boy lost within a tempest of conflicting emotion. His misguided choices had irrevocably altered the course of so many lives. Yet in the aftermath, he, too, sought understanding amidst the wreckage he left behind. The community's effort to form a scholarship in Daniel's name felt like a seed taking root, illustrating the power of collective goodwill. Reynolds knew every hardship brought with it a lesson, crafting a narrative meant to resonate beyond the streets of Maplewood. Perhaps in time, the bitterness of loss would give way to the beauty of remembrance, transforming pain into a catalyst for positive change.